You're listening to The Pastors Collective with Greg Surratt and Darrin Patrick. On each episode of our show, you'll hear from pastors around the country about the real work of pastoring, stories from the trenches of ministry that reveal the joys, heartaches, and grace that come from leading and serving in local churches. This episode was recorded at the 2019 ARC Conference in Birmingham, Alabama. Pastor Greg and Pastor Darrin sit down with Pastor Mike Fletcher, who has served as the senior pastor of Manna Church in Fayetteville, North Carolina for over 30 years. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the show.
We are here again at the ARC Conference. Just a lot of buzz, a lot of excitement, a lot of good things going on. They call it the biggest family reunion on the planet, and I think it is. And we are sitting with one of my favorite people on the planet. I'm serious.
Such a good liar.
Oh, no, I'm telling the truth. Michael Fletcher pastors Manna Church in, I was going to say Fayetteville, North Carolina, but that's not really true anymore because he's all over the world. And seriously, has a phenomenal vision. I'd like you to talk about that a little bit today, too. But great church. And Michael, we're glad you're with us.
It's an honor. Thank you.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about Manna, Fayetteville, it's a military community.
Yeah. Fort Hood. I was just talking to somebody else about Fort Hood a minute ago.
Yeah.
We're conspiring to move forward in our
next. How about Fort Bragg?
Yeah, let's do Fort Bragg.
That'd be a good one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, since I live right there, that would be important.
So what's unique about ministry there?
Well, I took over the church when it was about 350 people, and pretty soon I learned that we're going to have a pretty high attrition rate. We have about a 20% attrition rate. So the U.S. government takes people away that love you, that love church, that are volunteering, that are just core people, and they're gone, and they're not gone angrily.
Is Fort Bragg that significant a piece of Fayetteville? I mean,
yeah, Fort Bragg. About 60% of the Fayetteville, Cumberland County area is military-related people.
Okay.
And about 71% of our church.
Wow.
So we did a survey recently and had 74% of the people in the church fill out the survey, which makes it statistically viable. That's pretty strong. And of the 74% that filled out the survey, 45% had been with us less than 2 years.
Wow.
It's crazy. So there's this constant turnover, and our church is growing. And growing nicely only because we do so much outreach. But I got to tell you, it's exhausting. And one day I looked at a report, said we lost 1,143 people this last year to military transfer. And I just said, I'm sick of this. I'm going to plant a church near every U.S. military base in the world. And when it came out of my mouth, I said, dang, that's a great idea. Why didn't I think of that 20 years ago? And we didn't have the character to think about it 20 years ago. But
well, then you don't lose anybody.
Exactly.
They're all going. They're just moving.
You just redeploy them.
It's amazing. We, through the ARC, we help plant the churches that are his vision, and they'll start a church. They started in Colorado Springs, I think, with like 400 some odd people, and that's not just like folks off the street. By and large, they're trained, ready. They're already serving, and just an incredible vision.
In fact, we plant exclusively with our churches. That's it. I mean, you get a 93% success rate. It'd be crazy to go otherwise. So, we started with 100. Joe took 9 people. Joe Adams took 9 people to Colorado Springs. That was the people from home. But he had 126 people on his launch team, all who were Manna people that were at Fort Carson and all around, and $360,000. It's tough not to do well.
Yeah.
He launched with 488 people in a snowstorm, and less than 1 year later, they're averaging 600 every week.
Wow.
That's crazy.
How many churches are there, Michael?
We started 2 years ago with one, Manna Church, in different locations, the multi-sites. There are 8 today. Wow. And we're making prep to launch 2 more.
Well, I remember when you came to talk to me, we love to have coffee. You came down and shared your vision a few years ago of what you wanted to do. And you asked me if I thought it was crazy. And I lied. And I said, no, it's a great idea. I think it'll really work.
Great. I stuck my whole life on it. You lied to me. I walked down on a plane. There I am. Now I'm in the ocean. The boat's sailing away. And Greg's going, I lied to you, man. Oh my God!
No, I thought it was.
And this is I'm one of your favorite people on the planet.
I love
What do you
it.
do with your enemies?
Well, no, it's a big vision. I love it. I really do. I think anything you can do to turbocharge church planting is a big deal.
Pastor Michael, I know that you're really passionate about pastors being healthy. What do you do to stay healthy?
Well, I slowed down for one thing. I had a burnout a few years ago, and as a consequence of that, I took my first sabbatical.
I think that's when we met, or just that. What year was that? Do you remember?
I don't remember the year.
I remember.
Tell us about it before you get into the prescriptive end. What happened?
Well, success killed me. I remember being so burnt out. I said, I'm just going to go to the office and turn the lights off and read the mail all day and close the door. And somebody had put Church Executive magazine, which I don't read, that's not my job, in my box. And it was not just Church Executive magazine, but it was last month's version. And I started reading it because it was the mail, and it talked about pastoral burnout. And everything it listed there, it was me. But the telling thing was, they said this is really acute in successful churches. So I think there are probably people listening saying, well, killing it, we're doing great, that won't be my problem. But actually, it was almost like if I could just give a kind of a pictorial narrative on it. It's like a basketball player. I've got the ball, and they pass me the ball. Michael, you can make this basket 5, 4, 3, 2, and you shoot it. The ball's in the air when the buzzer goes off. You hit the basket, you lean over, hold your shorts, you're exhausted, and you say, this is what it takes to win. So every time we turned around, everything we touched was turning to gold. The problem was it was killing me while we were doing it. And the article said failure is actually a tremendous benefit because people say, I can't keep doing things this way. So I thought, do more, do it faster, do it smarter, hire the best people to do it alongside of you, and make a big pile, and make a bigger pile is better. And as it turns out, that's the opposite direction. And even though I have all the right theology, in my habits, I fell into just some bad habits that were really based in bad theology. Consequently, you start looking around and you see this one, you see that one, the comparison thing comes in. And for me, it was, how can you take time off, and how can you go hunting with your kids, and how can you go do this, and how can you go do that? Don't you people work? But you know what a normal life is? And then God spoke to my heart during the first part of the sabbatical and said, you're the one that's not normal. So I took a break and found out who I was in Christ, and now I only do what my assignment is.
What are some other things? Is that when you started running, or were you a runner before that?
No, I was a runner before that, and that's part of the problem. So I was living off of the endorphins. Again, every race, every marathon I ran, I set a PR. I eventually got where, I'm not boasting, it's just true, I was 16th, I was ranked 16th in the state of North Carolina in triathlon in my age group, and 64th in the 8-state region. So every time I was getting on the podium, I was first, second, or third. I was just addicted to it. And what I was addicted to was the serotonin, the epinephrine, the dopamine, all the stuff that comes from succeeding at work, But I remember pulling up, I was preparing for an Ironman, and I swam up to the end of the pool and did my interval, and I was breathing, and I looked at my watch and literally looked at the wall, literally said out loud, does every workout have to hurt? But it was that thing, it takes this to win, it takes this to win, you know?
That's exactly why I don't run, is I don't want to be sucked into that vortex of,
I'll run if people are chasing me.
Do you?
Yeah. But only then.
Both of you have the spiritual gift of sarcasm. I'm just telling you that right now.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
And we can miss the moment here with this incredible sarcastic gift. And that's that you don't have to be down and out. You don't have to be, we're not achieving what everybody says or thinks that we should. You can be on the other end of that equation.
Yes.
And knocking down all the goals and doing all the things that you think you're supposed to be doing, and just hollow in your soul and burn out. And that kind of sounds like where you were. So in turning it around, what'd you do?
Well, first of all, success and however you define that,
Yeah.
because it's relative to everybody's situation, but success consumes the margin. Because it takes more and more of you. You know, pastors collect expectations like boats collect barnacles. And pretty soon those expectations begin to build, and you feel like, okay, I need to meet these. And then when you meet them, then the expectation is you're going to continue to meet them. But the problem is when a boat is in the water laden down by barnacles, it takes more power just to get it going. So it takes more energy and effort to go the same speed, and you ride lower in the water. And so you end up spending a level of energy that you shouldn't. So where do you find that energy? It's in the margins. So you think, well, you do the noble thing, which is really just pride. I'll give up myself. So I'll stop doing the things that I like to do, that I love to do, and I'll just work harder. I'll get there before everybody else. It's noble. I'll be there after everybody else has left. It's noble. I'm setting a good example. I'm leading by example. And it's all just a bunch of hooey. So during that sabbatical, I really found out, God just really drilled down in my soul, Michael, I'm your father, you're my son. And because of that, you're complete. If it is, I'm your father, you're my son, and you're married to Laura, and you have to have marriage to be complete, you're not complete in me. If you have to have kids to be complete, you're not complete in me. But Lord, you called Laura into my life, and you called us to have these kids, and you called me to be a pastor. Yes, I call you to do these things, but first and foremost, you are my son, and that's it. That's all I expect from you. That's being your father is all I want for you. The rest is all gravy. So when I settled that issue, which is an issue I should have settled 20 years ago, when I settled that issue, I didn't feel like I had to push as hard. And it hurt me, because I'd get in the pool and feel like I don't want to hurt this bad. And I don't want to run this fast. And I started running marathons. I know you're going to say I'm crazy. And races to enjoy them, and to be with my kids, and to do sightseeing. We got a marathon.
You can get a good car and do the same thing.
That's true. We've got a marathon coming up in Seattle, and we're just going to run it to see the city.
That's great.
Enjoy it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And you couldn't do that before.
No, I'd be working on a PR.
Wow.
What would you say to a young pastor that is succeeding? He's having some success. What are some things that you would, counsel him on at this point?
Yeah, here's what happens. As soon as he starts winning, people who aren't winning come around and say, help me win. In other words, take some of what you have and give it to me so I can win. Now, we need to teach them how to win. What they want you to do is come along and win for them. So then everyone starts wanting a piece of you. And I do believe that we're supposed to give back, but you don't learn to say no. When I was younger, someone gave me this piece of advice. Michael, when you're young, say yes to everything unless God tells you to say no. The problem was I didn't change that advice. And at a certain point, you need to say, is this in my assignment? Not everyone who comes knocking on your door asking for help is in your assignment. Number one, 80% of those people probably aren't going to do what you suggest. So I was pouring out to people, and my wife was saying, Michael, why are you... These people are not doing anything you're saying. I know, but maybe one day, no. If they're not doing it now, they won't do it tomorrow. So turns out the voice of my wife sounds a lot like the
Voice
Holy
of the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
Yeah, he lives in
They
my wife
conspire.
too. Yeah.
What else? What else would you tell a young pastor that's
Well,
winning?
now this is one thing that God helped me with, and I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for that. And that is, you got to have a daily connection with Jesus. And I see a lot of pastors get busy, and they trade in that personal time with Jesus for personal time with Jesus and sermon prep, or personal time with Jesus and a word for the leaders this afternoon, or something along those lines. And I think that having a deep, intimate connection is the only thing that kept me going during that time. I would not be in ministry today if it weren't for that. And the other thing is, when you get to that place where you're realizing you're burning out, what you're going to do is self-medicate with something. And some things are worse than others. Fortunately for me, I self-medicated with work, and I burned myself out. And I,
Here's the problem though with that. You've self-medicated with work, and fortunately you recognize that, maybe through a burnout, crash, or whatever. But society and the church world celebrates that particular
that's a fact.
medication.
That's a fact.
I mean, we put you on the stage at the ARC conference. We celebrate you in every possible way that we can. if not knowing, and I'm not saying just you, I'm saying that's what we do with people. We celebrate that, not knowing that that is the thing that is destroying their soul.
Exactly. So we give a pass to striving and the sin of laboring outside the vineyard in order to get your accolades and feel good about yourself. Other people self-medicate with drugs or sex or alcohol or other kinds of things which we frown upon, but we give a pass. You're right, Greg. We give a pass and even applaud the guy that does the noble thing, which is not noble at all because he's fulfilling an assignment not given to him by God, but given to him by the expectations of the people around him.
Wow.
Actually goes to bed and wakes up the biggest fool of all.
So good.
What kind of things do you tell the church planters coming out of your church? Like what are some just counterintuitive things that, maybe aren't in the church planting books or manuals or training events?
Well, first of all, they need a dad, and I'm an old guy, so I kind of play that role in most of their lives. They need someone asking about their marriage. They need someone talking about their Sabbath. Are you really taking time off? And sometimes they just need the practical help of, and the humility of, could I have that sermon series? Especially planters. Can I have that? Could you give me that sermon series? So we resource them with, since they're all Manna churches, they have the same logo. It's real easy just to take the stuff and play it. One of our planters did somebody else's sermon series for an entire year except one 4-week series. He did his own. He's averaging over 500, but he put his work into the building part and let somebody else who's been doing this their whole life write the series for him. And I think a lot of young guys feel like, I got to do it all because I'm the planter and I've got to do every little bit of it, and they really don't. And they need to get help from somebody else, somebody from the outside.
So tell us about your marriage. One of the things I love about you is I love watching you with your wife. And I love the way
she's standing right there right now.
She's standing right there cheering you on.
She doesn't want attention. There's no camera, and yet she's still hiding behind it.
She's stepping away from
She's hiding behind a bookcase.
I love the way your wife looks at you, and I love the way you look at your wife. And it really inspires me to love my wife. So what are some of the practices that you guys have cultivated to stay connected?
Having lots of kids.
Well, that's true. We had 8 kids and 24 grandchildren. So yes.
Wait, say that again.
We have 8 kids and 24 grandchildren.
You heard it right.
Yeah. So it's fun. Life's fun. I will say this. I met Laura when I was 16. She was 14. I fell in love with her from the beginning. We became best friends, and I think that's the key. We've been best friends our whole life. We have passion in our marriage, which means she's a Latino, so there's a little spice, So we've got passion in our marriage, which means we can spark, and she's looking at me right now like, Michael Fletcher, don't you be telling her. So yeah. So we can spark like anybody else, but we don't go to bed angry. We keep it simple, and we keep short accounts, and we work on being best friends. So that's when I started running. I looked out, she was wanting to lose some baby fat. So she was out there running just, a quarter mile, a half a mile, and I look out the front window and go, I'm a pansy. My girl's out there running. I'm standing inside here eating chips, so I started running with her.
So what's wrong with that?
Nothing's wrong with that. But I think the other thing is shared interest. We've tried to find out things that we both love and sow into those things. So we love travel. We make sure we take vacations together and away from the kids. Love the kids. Love the kids are our best friends, but we take time away from them and pour into each other. And, train together like this Seattle thing, this race. So we concocted the idea together. We're going to fly out there and stay in a nice B&B and go eat in great restaurants and hold hands, and I'll kiss her at the race and say goodbye. I'll meet you at the end. We'll run separately, and then
because she's going to get there quicker than you, or
fortunately, I'm still a little bit quicker.
All right. Yeah. I that's a great observation, Darrin, because I see the same thing. You guys look to be very much in love, and
it's
that's
true,
a cool thing after all these years.
40 years.
Yeah, that's awesome.
40 years of fun and struggle. I mean,
it gives a lot of guys hope. You can do it.
You can do it.
You can do it.
Thanks for listening. If you're enjoying our show, please take a minute to leave us a rating and a review in iTunes. You can learn more about each episode and find transcripts at www.pastorscollective.com. Our show was executive produced by Greg Surratt and Darrin Patrick. It's produced by Mike Cosper and Narrativo Group. This episode was recorded and mixed by TJ Hester. Our music is by Dan Phelps. Thanks for listening. We'll be back in a couple of weeks.